So 2022 was an excellent year for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise because we got games like the Cowabunga Collection and Shredder's Revenge. But it got me thinking, what about its direct rival? Back in the 90s, its direct rival was Battletoads, and Battletoads was another mutant animal game where it was a beat-em-up style game, and it was fantastic. Very hard on the NES, but it was really fun. I have fond memories of playing Battletoads with my family and friends, and getting pretty frustrated with it most of the time, but you know, it was a lot of fun, and it was definitely a great beat 'em up game to have on the NES because nothing out there like this. Is very original. And what Rare did with the Battletoads franchise was excellent, and they're really funny, and they're really unique characters in the game. But I thought, why not have a compilation of the NES version, the Game Boy versions, the Genesis versions, the Super Nintendo versions, and even the arcade version. That's right, the arcade version. That is one of my favorite games in the franchise. It came out in 1994. After all these games came out that came out to consoles, they finally released an arcade version. And, when I think about going to the arcade and playing Battletoads, man, I was pumped. I was like, gosh, I wish they'd keep going forward with this franchise because it was just getting better and better and better. Now, Battle Maniacs on the Super Nintendo is by far one of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo. It has huge sprites, great music, still got the difficulty there, but when you're going to like punch somebody really hard, you got this really cool animation of like your fist transforming into this like huge like rock fist or something. It's just really neat. And, why not? Why have we not got a compilation of the Battletoads franchise? Because what you're going to see in this video, guys, is 10 games that came out on all different consoles. Now, you have the original you just saw there on the NES. And then you got, there's 3 Battletoads games on the Game Boy. You have this one here, which is weird because it has the same box art as the original one that came on the NES, but they're very two different games. This you're going to see the first level of each one of these. So you can tell this is not a direct port of the NES version. The direct port on the Game Boy was actually Ragnarok's World, which plays a lot differently than this one, but they're still both very fun. And then the Double Dragon crossover. Now, the Double Dragon crossover came out on all consoles back then. It came out on the Super Nintendo, the NES, and the Genesis, and Game Boy. Where it's not the greatest in the franchise. It's just okay. But you can play as a couple of the Double Dragon guys, so that's kind of cool. But, keep in mind, guys, this video is not going to have the LCD game, obviously, right? Because how am I going to capture that footage? And I don't even know where to find one of those. But the Game Gear version is not going to be in here. The Amiga CD32 game, which is a port of the original, and also the Sega Master System. Now, the Sega Master System is a very interesting release in the Battletoads franchise because that was the port from the Super Nintendo Battle Maniacs, and they ported it over to the Sega Master System, and that only came out in Brazil. So that's a very unique one to find. I'm sure you can emulate it somewhere if you're into that kind of thing. But also, another game that you're not going to see in this video is the newest Battletoads game, which came out in 2020 for the Xbox. I believe it's still on Game Pass, but it's just titled Battletoads. It is a different take on the franchise as far as art style goes. It's a very different art style because, it's got that modern look. It's got, hand-drawn graphics. And don't get me wrong, it looks beautiful and it plays great. But the characters, the Battletoads themselves, they just don't look the same to me and didn't really feel like they did the series justice by going that direction by the way that they look. I mean, that's, I don't know. That's just my own personal opinion. So I know it's a fun game. Don't get me wrong. It's pretty funny too, but it's just, I don't know. It's just not, it doesn't feel like the Battletoads to me. I wish they would have went with more of a pixel art style, kind of like what they did with Shredder's Revenge. That would have been awesome. I would have loved it in that style. Maybe, like kind of like similar to like the arcade version, or the Super Nintendo version with some modern pixel art graphics. Man, that would have been great. But yeah, so that you won't see that in this video because that's not to me a part of the retro compilation that I would like to see. So Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Why have we not got this from Rare and from, I guess, Microsoft now at this point, right? I mean, we kind of have a compilation. There's a Rare replay on the Xbox consoles, and I actually have it. I have the physical version of it, and it's got the arcade, and it's got the original that came out on NES, but it would be nice to have, you know, the Super Nintendo versions and obviously these Game Boy versions, you know, and then of course the arcade. I think it'd be great to have them in one place, because to me it's so important to have these retro compilations like this, especially when a franchise was, you know, pretty hot back in the 90s, like the TMNT franchise, you know. You know, personally, I prefer the TMNT franchise over Battletoads, and that's kind of the way things went. And that's why there was such a large gap, I believe, in between, you know, the arcade release and then the Microsoft Xbox release, you know, the most recent one that came out in 2020, because it's not a huge popular franchise. It's more of a, you know, a cult following, but they're still great games. And, you know, having these in one place would be awesome. I don't know if we would see it, like, say, on Nintendo Switch, though, or on PlayStation 5. But Microsoft and Nintendo have a very interesting relationship. You know, they've brought over games like Cuphead and, of course, Minecraft. And then, you know, like Ori Will of the Wisp. So, you know, Microsoft has been putting their Microsoft Game Studio games on Nintendo Switch. And there's definitely a good home for Microsoft games on, you know, the Switch. So it'd be an ideal place, in my opinion, to have, you know, these Super Nintendo, NES, and Game Boy games on the Switch, because that's where you're going to find your Nintendo fans, right? So, yeah, come on, Microsoft, please bring it over to Switch. But if we don't, bring it over to Game Pass, bring it over to Xbox Series S and X. I still would pick it up, because it's just important to me to have these compilations like this, you know, in one place, like I said, to play anytime you want to, because preservation is so important, especially when we get into a very weird era in gaming where a lot of things are going digital. I heard the other day when I was talking to one of my friends that Alan Wake 2 was going to be digital only, and I think that is absolutely ridiculous. It sucks. This is a sign right here, guys, that everything's going to be going digital, but I don't know, like, just having these games preserved. I know you can emulate them all day long, and most people probably will do that, you know, but if they do release a compilation, how about some special features? You know, get rid of the flickering on the NES games. You know, maybe add in some artwork and some history behind this, or throw in like a digital comic on the card or disc, you know, and have those things in that collection. Like we saw with the Cowabunga collection, there was some extra stuff on there, you know. Maybe even add in the Sega Master System version. That would be great. The only one that came out, I believe, in Brazil. Yeah, so in Brazil, I'd throw on that one in the compilation, you know. There was actually a Game Boy Advance version of the Battletoads. It was supposed to be like a remake or remaster of the Battletoads, but it never was released. It was canceled. So maybe they can finish that up, you know, whoever will do it, and put it in this compilation as well. But in this part of the video, guys, I would love to hear from you down in the comments below. Which game in the Battletoads franchise was your favorite? I would love to talk to you about all things Battletoads down in the comments. Now, personally, my favorite is the arcade version. I love the arcade version. It is awesome. Huge sprites, just super fast, action based. I think it's great. I wish it was a little bit longer, but that's because it came out in the arcades. Most people are going to stand there for 2 hours and play through the whole game, or however long it would take, right? But second in line, which I think is a very fantastic game, is Battle Maniacs on the Super Nintendo. That game is freaking fantastic. Huge sprites. I mean, when you're hitting guys, you know, on that final punch, that final pow, you got this massive, like, rock fist with spikes on it. I mean, it's cool. Your boots have spikes on it. It's really, really neat. It's got excellent music. Like I said, huge sprites. The graphics are fantastic. But in every one of these games, you're doing the same thing. You're trying to help rescue some of your mutant friends, and you're also trying to take down the Dark Queen. So, I mean, you can get that with, you know, all these games. And maybe, you know, maybe not add in all the Double Dragon crossovers in the compilation, because they're not the greatest in the franchise, especially like the Game Boy one like you see right here. It's not a very good game. But I don't know. I love the Battletoads. You know, it's funny, it's fun, they're great beat 'em ups, and it'd be cool to have this in a compilation. So let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about that. And also, you know, I'm gonna let the video roll. There's still a few more minutes in the video. It's gonna show, you know, the rest of this Game Boy one. Then you're gonna see the Double Dragon on Super Nintendo. Then you're gonna see Double Dragon Battle Maniacs and the arcade version are gonna be the last two. But down in the description, I'm gonna leave a timestamp for each one of these games, so you can check out each one of them. You know, the way that you want to watch it. If you want to skip right to the end and watch Battle Maniacs, there you go. It's there for you. So check that out down in the description. But anyways, guys, enjoy the rest of the video. And if you guys are new here and you guys love Battletoads, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And give this video a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it, and it helps support the channel. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Stomping time! Rush!
Hey!